Well, it's time now to talk once again with Massachusetts Senate Minority Leader Bruce Tarr. Senator Tarr, welcome back. You survived Gloucester's fiesta, I guess?
Absolutely. It's good to be back with you, Rick. And we did have a wonderful few days of the fiesta in Gloucester, and it was so wonderful. And I'm sure you feel the same way to see that tradition reinvigorated, continuing on after a couple of years of hiatus, and a wonderful thing for the community, wonderful thing for everybody involved, and everything went really well.
And we morph right into parades coming up for the 4th of July, which again, sort of hasn't happened very much in the last couple of years. And so another busy weekend for you when you're not working.
Well, you're right. But again, it's invigorating to have the spirit of those things unfolding again in front of us. And so for me on Saturday morning, I'll be cooking pancakes for the red, white, and blue breakfast in Manchester by the Sea. And then Gloucester has its Horribles parade on Sunday night. And then on Monday morning is the Manchester 4th of July parade. And Rockport's 4th of July parade is on Monday night. So I'll be fairly busy, Rick, and I hope to see you at maybe some of those things.
I will wave to you vigorously, I promise. Without a doubt.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so now a lot of frivolity, and deservedly so. We need the celebrations, but a very busy time for you this week on Beacon Hill.
Well, very much so, Rick. And, part of the issue this week was that I had actually postponed consideration of a couple of bills because I don't think we had had enough information about them, and there needed to be some more negotiation and some more work. So that meant on Thursday, we took up a lot of bills. And so that made for a very busy day, but it was a very productive day in the Senate. Some of the bills I consider to be very positive. Some of them that we passed, I think, still need some more work. But there was a lot of debate in the Senate chamber this past Thursday on a lot of important subjects.
Let's get started, starting with the Department of Children and Family.
Yeah, so Rick, I think we all know that we continue to see stories from time to time about issues where we have an adverse outcome with a child that's under DCF supervision, or we actually have a child that's missing under DCF supervision. And I have to say that agency deals with some of the most difficult situations in our society. And so they have to be given credit for that and the work that they do. But that being said, there's still room for improvement. So one of the bills that we approved unanimously in the Senate on Thursday would change the way that they do reporting. It would create more intensive reporting, more frequent reporting, and overall create a better system to be able to track what's going on at DCF and with all the kids that are in their care. And this was a bill that was long overdue. It had tremendous bipartisan support. Still needs to make it through the House, but I'm confident it's got a good chance to do that. And just so important.
I have to ask you, as a former teacher, when mandates came down for more reporting, I used to cringe. But you obviously have worked with DCF staff and things like that. So what is the dialogue between them and the Senate, for example, or Senate committees?
It's actually been a good dialogue, Rick, and I would point out too, and you raise a very important point, that the bill actually eliminated some of the reporting that isn't as productive in favor of adding some that is more productive. So it isn't just that we heaped on more reporting, it's actually a recalibration so that we get good information and information that makes sense for DCR to report. And I'll give you an example. One of the things that the bill requires is for DCF to have a 5-year plan on how to improve its operation. And I actually, in one of the reporting bills, amended the bill in one of its sections to require them to tell us, do they need more information technology? Because one of the things that we've seen lately in terms of case management for DCF are the use of things like tablets and other computer technology to be able to help case managers with very large caseloads. So I included that requirement that they tell us what they need. And hopefully that will get incorporated into the 5-year plan that's required. So my hope is that they won't be cringing when they see this. It has been a good dialogue and there has been great back and forth. And my hope is that this won't be treated as a hostile act, and this will be something that they can integrate into what they do while still maintaining their focus, which is, as it should be, on children and families in their care.
I appreciate it. It's always good when someone says, what can I do to help you? And that sounds like what you guys are doing. That's pretty cool. Next bill that you want to discuss?
So the next one is closely related to the first one, and that has to do with foster parents. And I think we all realize how important foster parents are in our system of child welfare. They take on a very large role. It's very challenging. And so one of the things, or one of the other bills that we did on Thursday, creates a foster parent bill of rights. And it leaves a lot of latitude for the development of that through the administrative agencies. But it basically says you have to have a set of basic rights: availability of information, timely hearings, no discrimination, a lot of things of that nature that foster parents need and deserve. And so that, again, was a bill that was passed with unanimous, vote, a voice vote, and it's one that we all feel very, very good about. Now, one of the things that I amended that bill to do is to say that foster parents will get a list of things that they need to know about, and I added to that list legal services. I want them to know what's out there that's available to help them if they become involved in a situation that involves a care and custody proceeding or something of that nature, where the foster parent is dealing with so many things. They ought to know that there's legal assistance available if they need it, if they get into one of those situations. So again, this is a very good bill. I think it's long overdue to be able to say, if you're a foster parent, if you take on this role that is so important and that we want you to take on, then you have a set of rights that's in writing and something that you can rely upon.
What precipitated your involvement in that?
Well, this particular bill has been coming through the committee process for quite a long time, Rick, and I've been involved in foster parent issues for quite a long time, trying to make sure that there is a sound framework for this. And my involvement has just come from people that call our office that are foster parents that have had a variety of situations where they reach out to us for help. And when you hear enough of those situations, when you talk to enough of those foster parents, you understand that there's a need to do better than that we're doing today. One of the things, Rick, that I offered as an amendment that did not pass in that bill is a re-examination of the amounts of money that we pay foster parents. We know right now inflation is running rampant. We know things like the cost of gas is very high or are very high. And so I wanted to actually take a look at what we're compensating these folks. And there was general agreement that we do need to do that, but the feeling was that it was outside the scope of this bill. But I'll be back.
I'm not even, this is a delicate question, but staying on the subject for a minute, when you get involved with this, when your office hears from adoptive parents, foster parents, anecdotally in general, are they fighting a battle over concern for the children that they have, or is it otherwise?
Usually it's the children that they have, and usually it's a situation where something has become complicated. They're trying to work through that. They need our help. And, I will say, Rick, that when that happens, we are very careful and very cautious about the role that we play, because we are not experts in those cases, generally or specifically. So we make sure to offer the assistance that we can, which is usually connecting parties and facilitating a conversation in the hope that we'll get a good result.
Wow, okay. Next, a bill about something I'd never heard of called a PrEP, P-R-E-P, is that it?
Yeah, so this is a situation, Rick, where I was unfamiliar with the issue until quite recently. PrEP is a drug, a pharmaceutical that's used to prevent the transmission of HIV. And it's taken in a prophylactic manner, so it's taken as a preventative drug to prevent transmission of HIV among populations that are at high risk. And the bill that we did allows pharmacists to dispense PrEP without a prescription if people meet certain eligibility criteria. And so this is an important thing for public health. It's fairly straightforward in being able to have this available and available without a prescription. And again, this was a bill that received unanimous bipartisan support, and it really is a common sense measure to help protect public health.
Sounds like a very emotional week, Senator, I got to tell you.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, a couple of other bills that you want to discuss?
So we had two other bills, Rick, and these are the two that I had postponed consideration of for a few days. And when I do that, I use a tool called laying the bill on the table, which I did twice for both of these bills because they're very complicated, they're very sensitive, and they're very important. So the first one has to do with civil asset forfeiture, which is the process by which law enforcement agencies seize assets that are used in the alleged commission of a crime. And so law enforcement will oftentimes, let's say if there is a drug offense that's happening and there's a large amount of cash involved, they'll seize that cash as sort of the fruit of the poison tree. And those proceeds are generally shared between the district attorney's offices and the law enforcement agency, the police departments. But there's a process. There has to be due process before you confiscate someone's property. So the property is seized, and then there's a proceeding, a civil asset forfeiture proceeding, where the person whose property has been seized has the opportunity to defend their right to keep that property or to get it back, as the case may be. And there's been some concern that there needs to be more accountability and some reform for the process in Massachusetts. There have been some alleged abuses where there has not been transparency and accountability, either for the assets that are seized or for the disposition of those assets by the folks that have seized them. So there is unanimous agreement that we need to have better reporting. We need to have a statewide database. We need to put that information on the website so people can see what's going on. But what there's less agreement about is how we do some of those things. And so the bill as originally proposed would have created a centralized fund where all of the proceeds would have gone, but that would have created an enormous amount of bureaucratic delay in getting the resources once they're properly confiscated and go through the process, would have caused a problem getting back to the departments and the district attorney's offices. And importantly, a lot of times those resources are used in ongoing investigations. So the idea of putting it into a centralized fund and waiting for it to get appropriated, if it ever got appropriated, that didn't make any sense. So we were able to change that. We amended the bill to keep the system that we have where each district attorney's office has its own trust fund and the proceeds go there. And again, what we agreed upon was more reporting for those things. But where this still needs some work is exactly what the reporting looks like and doing things that don't compromise our ability to work with the federal government. Because oftentimes, for instance, in drug situations, there's a joint task force. And when confiscations are made by one of those task force, there are very specific rules that the federal government has about how that property gets accounted for. And we don't want to run afoul of that because that is an important source of resources for our police departments and our district attorney's offices. So there's more work to go here. I think we can probably get over the finish line. The vote yesterday was split. A lot of us voted against the bill for the reasons that I've described, and others. It did pass, but now it will go over to the House, and I think they'll continue to work on it.
Is there clear-cut protocol and training about all of that on the local level?
Well, it's interesting because it's not standardized, and that's an important issue. So there is training on how it occurs at various levels in various departments and various district attorneys' offices. But one area where I think we could do better is in training and protocols for when things are seized. Right now, it's done very much on an individualized basis between individual district attorneys' offices and individual police departments. And so there could be work done here. And I think it's important to remember that we need to make improvements in those areas, but we can't dismantle this system because it's something that's very important to the people that protect us.
Sounds pretty complex, as you mentioned.
Very much so.
All right. One more bill that you wanted to mention?
So the last one is a criminal justice bill, Rick, and that has to do with juvenile diversion. And this is something that you may be familiar with. Where generally speaking, the district attorneys in Massachusetts run a program where a youthful offender, if they've committed a nonviolent offense, can be diverted from the criminal justice system and into an alternative justice system where they might get counseling, they might get other things. There's community service often required as part of it. But the idea is that a young person who makes a mistake shouldn't necessarily enter the criminal justice system the way that an adult would, or a repeat offender, or things of that nature. So juvenile diversion is an important subject. And it's something that, again, we've had in Massachusetts for a number of years. What the bill that we took up yesterday would do is allow the courts to do juvenile diversion. Right now, it's run by the district attorneys. The bill that we passed wouldn't change that, but it would add the courts to the entities that could divert a child or a youthful offender. Now, there's a couple of problems with that. It's a good idea, and I wish that we could have structured this bill differently. But number one, the bill would enable the courts to sentence someone or refer someone to juvenile diversion, but the courts don't have a juvenile diversion program. And so what I would have liked to have seen is the program established and certified before we allow courts to sentence people to it. That's number one. Number two, it's generally presumed in diversion that you want to deal with first-time offenders and nonviolent offenders. And that's the way most of the district attorneys run their juvenile diversion programs. This bill, unfortunately, would not be limited to first offenders and would not be limited to nonviolent offenders. And so, for instance, the bill would allow someone who committed assault and battery with a dangerous weapon to be subject to diversion. I don't think that's appropriate, as much as I support diversion. So again, I have problems with this bill, but we sent it over to the House, and hopefully they'll be able to make some progress in creating some better boundaries around this program.
Okay, I'm exhausted, Senator. I haven't done anything, but boy, that's a lot to digest. And I just wonder, I saw something on tartalk.com that is very uplifting. The legislature honored a local person for her work in during COVID and so on. Would you like to talk a little bit about that, please?
I absolutely would, Rick. So the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women every year allows legislators to nominate individuals as unsung heroines in the Commonwealth. And these are people, women, who make a difference that don't necessarily get the attention or the accolades that they deserve. And I was honored to nominate Rachel Lee, who is the public health person from the town of Hamilton, for her unbelievable efforts in helping us to set up the Greater Cape Ann vaccination clinic. And Rick, in the days when we didn't have an organized local effort, and we had super sites for vaccination, but there was a huge desire to be able to have vaccination done locally and frequently. My office worked with 10 communities to put together a regional clinic that would operate on different days in different places. And there were several key people that worked to make that happen. And Rachel Lee is one of them. She has an outstanding public health background. She rolled up her sleeves. She was attentive to the details. She was at almost every one of the clinics. She helped to organize all of the volunteers and the people that worked at the clinics. And she really helped to drive the Greater Cape Ann Clinic. And, you know, we've been through a lot of things with the pandemic that we're still enduring. But one of the most heartening things is to see when people really rise to the occasion. And Rachel Lee rose to the occasion. And as a result of it, countless people, I'm sure there's a number, but I can't recall it, countless people got vaccinated, and they got vaccinated locally.